All right, today's conversation is about Center of Excellence, backup and recovery requirements from a data-centric point of view. I'm not going to be talking about your IT security guy's job or the day-to-day implementer's job, I should say. I'm not going to talk too much about building your disaster recovery plan. I want to talk about a data-centric point of view, which is usually more of a compliance, how is the data handled conversation. You're probably used to holding these two conversations, recovery point objective and recovery time objective. Brief review just in case this is outside what you're used to. You have to define what's an acceptable data loss and how long a system can be down. The lower those numbers, generally the more expensive your backup solution is going to be. Might not even be possible with some technologies. So you need to have an agreement between your leadership, your data owners, and whoever about what these numbers are. But how do you get there? And how do you answer all those other questions about like key management, who's encrypting what, who's shipping what, how is the media handled, can you use a cloud, do you have to offsite, are you having someone come by and pick up tapes or drives every week? All those questions have to be answered as well, even though we sometimes just sort of end the conversation here on the size of your business. When you're asking these questions, you have to understand priority. The first priority you need to be worrying about right now is your legal. What does the law require you to do? If you're handling healthcare data, military data, you might have legal obligations where a mistake can be disastrous. Could end up with you behind bars in some situations. That is your first and foremost conversation. Your boss can't override this. Some compliance organization can't override this. This is the law. You must follow it. It's the most important aspect. If they say you must use at least 128-bit encryption and the key must be stored in a separate region, you must do that. If they say the data must stay inside your country or your zone, you must do that. You don't get a choice because your company has a separate policy or prefers something else. That is your first layer of decisions when you're designing your backup solution. The next layer of solutions you might have are your compliance requirements. Not to be confused with your legal ones, but compliance can often be interdepartmental, intercompany, I should say, where we have an obligation to use a certain handling, a certain procedure. If we fail to follow that procedure, we might be fined or lose our ability to process data through a third party provider like a credit card transaction company or something like that. These compliance requirements, they can be odd. They can also be in conflict with legal requirements. Whatever the legal requirement is, wins every time. You don't want to end up in jail. Better to get another job if your company's telling you to do something against the legal requirements. Next on the list, we have our standards. Now, these are sort of what Microsoft might say, Intel, Apple might say. What is their requirement? What are the standards for your industry? What are the standards for the culture throughout your company? Whatever the standards are, those get to apply next. Your company prefers using S3 offsite backups. That's awesome. As long as it doesn't conflict with legal compliance requirements, go for those standards. Once we don't have any standards, legal or compliance guidances for us, we have guidelines. These are things that are done more at the administrator level. My team does it this way. A friend told me this way. And you kind of just do it that way. You didn't think about legal, you didn't think about compliance, you didn't think about industry standards. It's just what you do. You've done it this way your old job, you've done it for 20 years, it keeps working. Those are guidelines. Those are okay. We prefer the other ones because we'd like to try and get things unified, but this is fine. The last and probably worst one is ad hoc. This is a decision you make in a minute, 45 seconds, without too much thought to anything else. You're in your own bubble, you're not communicating to anyone, and you just say, you know what, a once-a-day backup to tape that I just have laying on my desk, backed up this USB drive, is just fine. This is the least preferable of all of the conversations you need to have. I'm going to close out here and say, know your legal, know your compliance, know your standards, avoid local guidelines and ad hoc decisions. If you stay up here in the legal, compliance, and standards zone, you're going to communicate better with your stakeholders, with your data owners, with your leadership, with your customers. Your communication's going to be better. You're going to win. All right, I think I've covered this pretty well. I'm going to cut out here. See you guys later.